Hello, 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 and welcome to Scholesy Talks Impact Wrestling. Bung. Just think I've knocked over a load of toys, which I have done. I got a little bit excited there, people, a little bit excited. Well, I want to tell you all, Instagram and Twitch and YouTube when it comes on, I spent my morning after the school run watching Impact Wrestling, the Ozzy tour, the Australian tour, the tour down under. And I'm going to be very honest with you. It was worth the watch. It was exciting from beginning to end. Gave you everything you needed and wanted from a professional wrestling event. And it was amazing. So this event was the Impact Wrestling Australian tour. They were touring with an Australian company. An Australian company was helping them put the product together. And interestingly enough, their local council and government were helping them put this together as well. The opening match was between a guy called Slacks and Adam Brooks, two Australians that know each other very well. They went through a wrestling sort of like series called the 40 Stages of Hell match, which I'm not going to lie, not sure what it was about, slightly confused what it could be about, but I will be on Google later on searching, having a look. Hello, Josh, my COD friend. Hello on the Instagram. Hello. Okay, but the match was good. It started off a bit of a kick fest, a bit of a slap fest, a bit of a cheeky lad wrestling match in that sense. And Brooks had the advantage all the way through it when it comes to it, to that point. But Slacks ended up doing a great superplex. Okay, rolled up into a second superplex. Brooks hit some moves off the top and then off a swanton bomb. All right, that came from Brooks. Okay, Slacks put his knees up and then 1, 2, 3. After a big kick to the noodle, Slacks wins. And it was a good match. It was a good opening match. That's what you want from a match. You want two local Australians. It's going to get the fan base a bit wild, a bit crazy to start something like that. And it was fast, it was quick, it was super good, in all fairness. It was a great opening match for this Impact Wrestling tour. And then we moved into a really, really cool little Motor City Machine Guns sort of segment. And the segment basically was based on the logic of this is the Motor City Machine Gun experience. Because Chris Sabian and Alex Shelley, both of them hold the two biggest titles in the business. All right, being the X Division title and being the Impact Heavyweight Championship. And I think, for me, it was what was needed because fundamentally, when it comes down to it, it is the Motor City Machine Guns party. It's their business. It's their shizwat. Do you know what I mean? And that is what it's about. And then we went into our first match. And our first match, interestingly, was my favourite. It was between Shaw and a lass called Reed, and the lass Reed, she had this amazing little sort of like voodoo doll horror gimmick, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. But this match was a context building match, so people need to understand pro wrestling is not about what just happens in the ring. There's the promos, there's the theatre, there's the drama to absolutely every bit of it, and that includes the wrestling gear, that includes little bits and bobs that happen in the ring as well. And this match was a feeling-based match, all right? Because this, what we're talking about today, is part one of a two-part special in Australia for their tour. And Shaw will be fighting tomorrow Diana Perazzo for their Impact World Championships. And this is why this match is important. So Shaw comes into this and she hits a wrist lock, a headlock. She goes off the ropes. She is hitting hard. She is hitting powerful. We see Reed do a sleeper kind of thing. And then what happens is Shaw gets out this with some big knees. And we're talking about this is so fast moving, so quick. And fundamentally, the match ends. all right, with Shaw hitting Diana Perazzo's armbar move to win the match. And this is the point of the context that I'm trying to tell you. Storytelling. Shaw comes into this match. She is wrestling like a technical-based mat wrestler. That is Diana Perazzo's stuff. That's what she does particularly. And that's how she's wrestling. She's sending a message to Diana. Last night's Impact Wrestling, the weekly TV show, had this whole concept of Diana scouting Trinity, scouting Shaw. And what came out of the match today was Shaw showing Diana that you're not the only one that can mat wrestle. And that is why wrestling is beautiful, for this specific reasoning. And as I said, this is going to be moving quickly. So we move into our third match. We had the two Ozzy locals. Then we had Shaw versus Reed. And then we had a nice little match. Eddie Bloody Edwards, legend, Impact legend, versus I Believe in Joe Hendry. The digital media champion for 233 days. He holds all the records. He holds all the information. He holds every concept of being the king of trolls. And this match was Henry's best match since rejoining Impact Wrestling. And yes, it was that good, people. It was that good. Now, this match started off very interestingly, actually. So Joe Hendry did his typical thing. Because he's an entertainer when it comes down to it, major entertainer, he came in and he got the microphone from the announcers, and he grabbed the microphone. And he made some statements sort of like this. Look, this town is so good it was named twice. And I've got 2 words for you. Eddie sucks. What he did at this point was good psychology. He grabbed the crowd. He got the crowd to be on his side directly. He made the crowd want to hate Eddie Edwards. And you know his other 2 famous words is I believe. He got the crowd on his side quickly, and then the crowd were there through the whole entire match. It moved very fast, actually, interestingly enough, and this was a great and enjoyable match. We saw Joe Hendry surprisingly control Eddie Edwards all the way through it. Now, Joe Hendry is known to be a very, very strong wrestler. And that's what he based the whole entire match on. Power. We saw that Eddie was trying to bring him into having a chop fest, a slap fest, but that was not working. It was not working. So Eddie Edwards only controlled about 2.5, maybe a minute of this whole entire match. And it was with a chop fest. It was the mind games of his Japanese strong style of attack. But the big Scotsman did not fall into that trap. And he continued to be the big strong boy that he is. So we saw the match round up quite interestingly as well. We saw Hendry take full control of the match. We saw Eddie Edwards get powerbombed, suplexed and beaten down. When Eddie gave something, alright, Joe had an answer. And it ended up with a Hendry win. And I was buzzed by that. And just to answer Josh's question, wasn't on the first night, big man. Wasn't on the first night. But I love Bully Ray. So we are going to go into the next match. Killer Kelly versus a lass called Aisha. Every should get to know who Killer Kelly is. Killer Kelly is one of these wrestlers that is hard hitting, a bit gothy, red haired, a bit mental, a bit mad, a bit interesting. She's become really good friends with a wrestler called Masha Slamovich, and it looks like them two are going to be a tag team as the future moves on in Impact Wrestling. Okay, which I'm hoping that is going to be the case, versus this Australian local talent called Aisha. Aisha walks out. They sort of gave her this whole concept of she's first class. She believes in being in first class. Blah blah blah. A bit of a poshie she wants to be, or a businesswoman. She walked out with a massive bottle of champagne as well, which I'm not sure what was that about. Was that about because she was a bit posh, a bit interesting? Or was that because she thought she was actually going to beat Killer Kelly and have a little drink afterwards? It could have been many things. And the great thing about it is Killer Kelly jumps straight into this with the mind games. She is hunting Aisha like a piece of meat, like a piece of prey. She's on all fours, just staring at her, waiting to attack this girl. Now, it happens, and there's this great moment where it was artistic when it came down to it, when Kelly did this beautiful, absolutely beautiful fisherman's deadlift suplex, and it was gorgeous. And that was kind of the beginning of the end for that. Yeah, Aisha had some moments where she pushed in, she had some power, and there was some elements of her thinking she had the big balls and she was a bit brave. But the match fundamentally ended with a Death Valley driver, okay, by Kelly. Great match. No, it didn't end up with a Death Valley driver, sorry. It had a Death Valley viola, and then it was a high-on German suplex into a killer clutch. Alicia taps. And you know what? It was. Alright, talk to you later. COD. Okay. It was a really good match. It was a nice little warm-up match for whatever happened. And these are the sort of matches that are dead important in professional wrestling, because they are the filler gap matches. And the filler gap matches tend to be the ones that are more interesting, more fun to watch. Okay. Alright. And you could be easily texting at the same time. And we'll move into the next match, which was Chris Sabian versus Frankie Kazarian and Robbie Eagles. Free fall. Chris Sabian and Frankie have fought a hell of a lot back in the TNA days. And Robbie Eagles, absolute legend. New Japan Pro Wrestling Beast. Zack Sabre Jr.'s pal, as we all know as well. And it was great because Robbie got in about 30 seconds, he got the crowd on his side with Ozzy, oi, oi, oi. And it was a great little cheeky moment. Built the crowd up. So it was really, really good because it started off with basically the two TNA originals trying to slap Robbie out of the game, get rid of him quickly. And Robbie actually did so well, held him off. We saw a great little Sabian twisted Frankie and Robbie up in this sort of like I don't know what you explain it, but it was some peculiar sort of submission, which I thought was really, really fun. And we saw Frankie Kazarian, in my perspective, nearly win the X Division title, and it was so close. But Chris Sabian ended up winning it. There were some great moments in the match, but it was an okay match. I'm not going to lie. It was an okay match. It was an interesting match. There was a few good moves in it, but it was a typical sort of Chris Sabian, Frankie Kazarian match, and Robbie Eagles was kind of there. That's my perspective of it. Agree, disagree, that's fine. All right, it wasn't a bad match. It was an okay match. Okay, and I'm not going to lie, every match up to the next one, that was kind of the standard it was sitting on. Every match was an okay match. It was a match worth watching. Okay, via the Shaw match, because I think the Shaw match had perfect storytelling and it just proves her ability and psychology in wrestling that she has. But I'm not gonna lie. I'm a Myers fan, man. I'm a Myers fan. So Moose and Myers joining together to fight the ABC was one of these moments that was beautiful. They have totally opposite styles. They have opposite size. I didn't realise how small Ace Austin and Chris Bay were compared to Moose and Brian Myers. And that was something that was very, very, very noticeable all the way through the match. And I think Myers did a very clever thing. He understood that he doesn't have speed. He's not the fastest wrestler, but he has power. So he slowed down the match quite quickly after a great little Ace Austin and Chris Bay run. For about 2 or 3 minutes, okay, we saw speed beating power. But that wasn't the longevity of the story in this wrestling match. We've got to remember about Ace Austin as well. So these two tag teams are relatively quite new. Ace Austin and Chris Bay, Bullet Club, ABC, have held the tag titles for about 120 days, 121 days maybe. And they've only been together a year. And it honestly looks like they've been together for 5 years. And Brian Myers and Moose is a fairly new thing. And it was well worth watching, man. It was a well worth watching thing. I think Brian and Moose, they have potential to go massive, go big, and be a tag team in Impact Wrestling. Tag team championship champions in Impact Wrestling as well. We saw this absolutely beautiful time period where Brian Myers and Moose cut off the whole entire ring. They cut off the whole entire ring. They didn't even half it. They quartered it. And they held off because of power and strength. These two young gun fast boys. Now, I'm not going to lie, I've got lots of wrestling figures and stuff that around me, and I've got lots of Myers figures because I'm a massive fan. Massive fan. And I remember when he was the tag team champion with Cameron Grimes back in the TNN days, absolutely Impact days early on. And it was just such a good match. They work so well together. And we see sort of like a sweet power bomb get fouled, all right, and then we see Bay get a lucky pin, a lucky roll up pin that literally, okay, won the match. And do you know what? That match, so far of the whole entire wrestling event, was the best. And it was the best because we saw the art of tag team wrestling with two fairly new tag teams. We saw what Bay and Austin could offer was speed, power, quick tags, boom, 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 boom. All right, and then move on. We saw from Moose and Myers something even better from my perspective. We saw, okay, old school tag team, powerful wrestling. All right, and that in itself is a great art. We saw them quarter the ring, okay? And at the end of the day, from my perspective, it was Brian Myers and Moose's match to lose. And that was the case. They lost the match, a lucky roll-up. Now we move into our next match. We're doing this quite quickly, quite rapidly. I understand that. Okay, but Steph DeLanda versus Purrazzo. Now this was a match everybody was waiting for. On my other podcast with my boy Josh, Don't Call Me a Diva, check it out on our YouTube. They're well worth what listening to. We did a podcast last week and we spent a whole entire segment talking about Stephanie DeLanda. We actually named the podcast, How Do You Solve a Problem Like Stephanie DeLanda? And as we all know, she is former NXT, okay? She has had spells in Impact Wrestling. She's had spells in Ring of Honor. She's the indie queen, the deathmatch queen, and this match was a kind of proving grounds to see where she could go. I personally think she did this great promo before the match, and the promo before the match, she said, well, I was told to go away and come back when I'm ready. Well, now I'm ready. I've done the scene. I've done the hard work. Okay. And now I'm ready to face the big guns. This was an exhibition match, fundamentally. This was a match that was made to show the wrestlers, not made for a title win or a loss, basically. And Stephanie DeLander walked in and she just pissed off everybody. She pissed off all her fans. Okay, she annoyed all her fans. She annoyed every Australian person there, basically being abusive about the town and being abusive about the venue and so she has learnt a hell of a lot from Matt Cardona. How to be a great heel. And Cardona, there's no debate about it. He's a very, very good heel. He knows how to play the game. He knows the psychology. And that's the important things about pro wrestling. Psychology is a massive thing. You might think I'm joking, but it's an important thing. And Purrazzo was like, oh, darn. For once, people don't think I'm the bad guy or the heel. So she worked that. She was like, oh, wow. Sort of like, and she worked that really, really well. And that was like about 2.5 seconds in that sense. Okay. And then Stephanie DeLander, this was your best match in your whole entire career. Your best match in your whole entire career. I'm going to say this honestly. It's better than the time when you won the Ozzy belt. It was better than your run in NXT. You were Indie Hartwell's Doc Gallows. We were saying that bodyguard, big person, big wrestler, security guard in that sense. But this match was a proving grounds match to see how good you were. Deonna Purrazzo is not the biggest, but her particular talent. Okay, her particular talent is mat wrestling. Sorry if you can hear my son, people. He's just kicking off a little bit there. Okay. But this match, all right, was particularly a proving grounds match. And she outworked Deonna. Okay. She didn't out-wrestle her. She outworked her in the concept of her power. She came in and there was some absolute great moments. She slapped Deonna about. She showed her raw power. And she was giving massive kicks into massive suplexes. And she was beast moding the thing. It was a game of power versus submission. One of my favourite moments of the whole entire match was this moment where Stephanie bear hugged Purrazzo super hard. Super hard. It was a killer, man. It was a killer. But Purrazzo turned it around eventually and put it into an armbar. And then Stephanie grabs the ropes, which saved her. We saw a beautiful, fantastic choke slam. And the match did end with Stephanie tapping, but losing don't mean nothing. Losing don't mean nothing in pro wrestling because of this reason. That match you proved that you were championship material. Championship material, and that is all we wanted to see. For me personally, if I was Scott D'Amore, if I was Impact Wrestling people running, I would sign her up ASAP. And do you know what I'll do with her? I'm going to be dead straight with you. I'd put her in with that digital championship. Put her against Joe Hendry. Put her against flipping Alex Shelley. Put her against Deonna. She has the ability to be a long-term, amazing champion for Impact. And we will see if that happens. I pray that it happens, because if it does happen, okay, we have got, my perspective, the most over heel in pro wrestling. She is so loved by her fans. You just have to click on her Twitter, man. Just click on her Twitter. Just click on, look, go on Instagram. Find Stephanie DeLander on Instagram. Find her on that as well. She is that talented. And I say that because Deonna Purrazzo is the #1 wrestler in the world. Her technical ability and mat game is gorgeous. And Stephanie DeLanda held herself brilliantly. Brilliantly. Well done, Deonna, for winning, man. Tomorrow will be interesting. You going against Shaw. Deonna Purrazzo versus Shaw tomorrow night, the second day of the event. That is the one that's going to be the game changer, because we saw Shaw wrestle great mat wrestling. Massive fan of Shaw as well. But look, man, we get to our final match of the card. And yeah, I said this is going to be a quick conversation. It's difficult to talk about wrestling, sort of like a whole entire pay-per-view on your own, because sometimes you need people to remind you about bits and bobs, but I'm trying my best. A weekly show's easy, okay? Doing a pay-per-view is quite difficult. So this match was clever. It was tactical. We're talking about Macklin versus Shelley. We're talking about the former champion versus the champion. We're talking about the former champion that feels like Shelley doesn't deserve winning to have this belt. And this is kind of the rematch clausey sort of thing. You know what I mean? And early in this match, it felt that Macklin had an answer to everything Shelley was given. Early, very early. And I thought that this match might unexpectedly go to Macklin. And you know what? If it did. I wouldn't have been upset by it, because I don't think it matters who the champion in Impact is, because 80% of the roster are all absolutely incredible people. Macklin proved that his ability was of a champion. He proved that he thought about this match a hell of a lot. He proved that his technical and tactical concept to try to push through this title was possible. We saw this amazing and beautiful mix of strong style, tactical, mat wrestling. And Shelley still got on top. Shelley is a veteran wrestler. He's been around for years. Absolutely years. But everyone knows him because of Motor City Machine Guns fundamentally. But he's one of them wrestlers that you put in this situation to see how good he is. For me, he's better than Chris Sabin. And that's saying a lot. And that's his tag team partner. But he saw an issue. He worked on the issue. And he pushed Macklin's knee to the point of death, to the point of it falling off. Okay, all right, and that was what made this match special. But then on the other side of this, Steve Macklin saw exactly the same concept. Both of them are using their brains. Both of them are smart lads. Both of them could win this match easily. And what Macklin started doing, he started countering after countering. He countered into putting Shelley into a really deep and rough Boston Crab. And it was rough. Okay? It was rough. He was using the post to get his lower back. He was bending round his Shelley's back around the post really hard, and it was like really weird, because you're thinking Shelley must do DDP yoga or something, man, because I've never seen a man bend like that in my life. And he was actually bending around that back. He was hurting that lower back, and he was going all out to get this match finished by her in the lower back of Shelley. But Shelley, man, this is Shelley. This is Alex Shelley, man, an absolute veteran, a smart guy. What do you think he went and did? He went back to the tactics of taking down his knee. There was a brilliant moment where he got Macklin, he kicked Macklin into the head, put him to a figure four. And you could see he was in pain. It might be kayfabe pain, but he was in pain. And fundamentally, Shelley wins this match with a shell shock. And you know what? It was the right call to do. Day one of the Ozzy tour, man. Day one of the Ozzy tour. If anybody is interested, it was $14.99 on Fire TV. And do you know what, man? It was worth every minute of it. I sat down. My son's not very well today, so he's been laying down. He's been watching it with me, and he's enjoyed it. He had a lot of questions about it. I think when it comes down to it, the standout matches, interestingly enough, was Moose Myers versus the ABC, Ace Austin and Chris Bay. And the other standout match was Diana versus Delanda, and then Maplin versus Shelley. Them three matches were high-level matches. They were matches that did everything you wanted in a wrestling match. And that was day one, man. That was just day one. I've got a shout out to Shaw as well, because her match was gorgeous, because it was a storytelling match. So listen to me, guys. This is it. This is just day one. Day two is going to be far, far more interesting, far more exciting, far more, Impact Wrestling. As a mark of Impact, man, I just want more and more Impact Wrestling, in all fairness. But yeah, it was a solid 3.54 out of 5 stars for a first day of an event. As I said to you, if I have to pick one match, it's going to be Moose Myers versus the ABC. Absolutely great tag team match. I like tag team wrestling. When it's done well, it's done well. When it's done badly, it's done badly. But that was done well. That was done pretty. That was gorgeous. You saw 2 big lads versus 2 small bags. Speed versus power. Great match. Listen, guys, go and watch it. I have now got to go and eat dinner or do what normal people do, or whatever. But I will be back tomorrow night, a bit later. I'm thinking probably 8, half 8, 9 o'clock on Instagram Live and on Twitch to talk about day 2 of Impact Wrestling, the Ozzy Tour. Thank you very much. Enough love.